So we're going to start with the story, A Cozy Cozy Hoose. The name Cozy Cozy Hoose is basically as if you were saying the cozy cozy house in English. What is the meaning of cozy? The meaning of the word cozy is comfortable, and hoose means house. So basically it means the comfortable house in regular English. But here we are dealing with a little bit of Irish over here in this kind of story, and therefore that's why we have that name. So first we're going to talk about the genre of the story, that is fantasy, okay? A fantasy story can be set either in the real world or in an alternative one, okay? For example, if you think about the stories like The Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, things like those ones, those are fantasy stories as well. Because even though they are in the real world, well, at least Harry Potter, there is a part of the world that is not part of it. Or in the case of The Lord of the Rings, that it takes place in the magical kingdom of Mordor. So they are places that are magical and are fantastical. But for a fantasy story, you can have it as well in the real world, but with some different elements, okay? It usually has elements of magic, and there is often a journey or an adventure. In the case of the Cozy Cozy House, a family of Scottish garden gnomes, sorry, I say Irish and it was Scottish, takes a long walk in the snow to celebrate Burns Night in a home that isn't theirs. So that's the summary of the story. Like you have like this family that you see over here. Let me point it out for you if I can. So the family that I have over here, that are the owners of the house that we will see later. And we have a family of gnomes that are part of the story as well. So anyways, let's start with the story. And the first thing that we need to know is the keywords from the story. The first thing that we see is that we see the word bagpipe, okay? If you see the explanation over there, a musical instrument with red pipes that are pressure, wind, humidity, etc., etc., etc. In a few words, not to bore you, a bagpipe is what we call in Spanish a gaita, okay? Probably you have seen that when people is from Scotland, like in The Simpsons, you have a character that is from Scotland, and in some movies as well. They have like these little bags with a lot of pipes that they blow and they start making sounds. That's a bagpipe. Then we have a bun that in this case, it has two meanings, okay? The first thing or meaning that you have for a bun is a piece of bread, like the one that you use in a hamburger or a hot dog, or it can be something that you use over here in your hair. Sería como un moño, una colita, the ones that you have in your hair, or a piece of bread. That's the meaning of bun. Then the word we have carve, okay? And in the word carve, we have that its meaning is cut, okay? But cut in a specific way, a hard material in order to produce an object, design, or description. When you're carving something, it's like you want to make the shape of something else in the thing that you're carving. For example, you see that, probably you have seen it before, that certain people work with wood, and they make shapes with wood. And what they do is that they carve the designs, the drawings, the letters, etc. in that. In this case, we can carve as well in chicken. For example, you can cut it in pieces and then you're carving it, or in bread as well, if you want to make a loaf bread in different pieces as well. Then we have a chime, that is a bell or a metal bar, typically that is tuned to produce a melodious series of ringing sound. Chime, that is supposedly an instrument, but it can be used as well to talk about a chimney, that place in which you put fire and the smoke is getting out of the house. Then we have a chirp, that is a short, sharp, high-pitched sound. That's a chirp. Basically a little sound, like similar to the sound like you make when, like for example, when a pan is falling from the ceiling and it makes a lot of noise. That's the kind of noise that they do. Then we have chuckle. The word chuckle means to laugh quietly or inwardly. It's like when you do something like this, like that, without opening your mouth and without you doing any sound. You see that something funny happens and you, that's fun, like that. Then we have gas, that is to inhale suddenly with the mouth open out of pain or astonishment. It's like when you do something like, when you're surprised about something or you're scared about something. For example, you see that probably a person that you haven't seen for a long time is doing something that you couldn't imagine, and you're like, oh my gosh, what is he or she doing? That's the meaning of gas. Then we have drone, that is make a deep inaudible sound in response to pain and despair. So groan is basically what the dogs do, but we do it as well when we're like, when you're angry and you start doing these kind of noises. Then we have grumble, that is complain or protest about something in a bad temper, but in muted way. So grumble is that when you start complaining, probably you have seen it, that, for example, when somebody gets mad at someone else, they start going away and they start saying like, oh, that person, I hate him so much. That is the way in which you use a grumble. Okay? Sería como un murmullo in Spanish. Haggis. Haggis is a dish that they mention a lot in the story, but it's kind of nasty. You will see why later on. Because it's a dish that it consists of sheep's calf. That means the calf, that is the thing that they have over here. Often mixed with oatmeal, so that means avena. A seasoning and boiled in a bag. Traditional made. So I will tell you in a few words what is the haggis. You take many pieces of the sheep, you put them with vegetables and things inside the stomach of the sheep, because you take the stomach out and it's a big bag where you put everything, and you put it to cook, you put it to boil, and that is the haggis. So when they serve it to you, it's the big stomach that is like a bag that has a nut, and then you open it and you have everything inside that has been cooked over that. It's kind of gross, but that is a typically Scottish dish. Then we have the kilt, that is a skirt with many folds, made from tartan cloth and traditionally worn by Scottish men and boys. So it's the kind of skirt that you see that people from Scotland wear. It's not a skirt, it's a kilt, and they have a difference. The difference especially is because the kilt is not something that you wear in a regular basis like a skirt, but it's a traditional wearing. It's something that you just wear for a special occasion. So I don't think that Scottish people are all the time wearing a kilt. No, they just do it for rituals, religious occasions, and important occasions like traditions and things like those. And then we have a tartan, that is the design for clothes traditionally associated with Scotland. It's the stripes and square that you see on a kilt. That is a tartan. Or the design that you see on a bagpipe. You probably have seen it before. That is typically red. It has some squares and some lines. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the story, and the story starts with the MacDonald family. Remember that we have two families in the story, the MacDonalds and the MacGnomes. That are the gnomes that we will see later, who recently moved to a new house. While they were unpacking, they found a gift from their own Kaylin that was full of surprises. So basically, they just moved out to a different house, to a new house, and what happened was that it was the second day and they were still unpacking their stuff, right? Trying to take out everything they have and they put it in the right place. So what happened after this is that they found a little gift from the young Kaylin that was a family of gnomes, that the garden gnomes, the ones that you put in the garden as a decoration. They were three of them along with their houses. And what happened was that the gift consisted of the three garden gnomes, as I mentioned, that each of them was different. For example, you have the grandpa with the bagpipe, okay? He was an old man with the bagpipe. The grandma who had great hair, and the granddaughter with pink cheeks and blonde hair. So you have grandma, grandpa, and granddaughter. Each of them was different. Grandpa used to play the bagpipe. Grandma used to have a bun on her head. And the little girl was just there because she had some red cheeks and things that, like, for example, her hair was really, really outstanding compared to the other gnomes. So what the family did, as you see over here with the kids, they took the gnomes out to the garden with their houses and they put it over there, okay? So what happens is that days after this happened and the family lived together in their house and the gnomes lived together in the house, the winter came and the gnomes were at home trying to warm themselves. You will see in the story that they are really cold and they are doing something like this and they are wearing a special tartan clothing to keep themselves warm. And what happens was that the grandma didn't have enough fire, or it was not hot enough to prepare the haggis, that it was a typical Scottish dish. They were celebrating the haggis and they were celebrating a certain event for their families, but they didn't have a way to cook at home. So what happens is that they heard some noises and went out to investigate. And if you see in the story, they go through the snow, the grandpa is playing the bagpipe along the way, and they are going and marching until they find the McDonald's house. And when they find the McDonald's house, they found the kitchen. And they say, Grandma said, okay, this is the opportunity to prepare the haggis. And they were trying to get themselves warm and get comfortable in the house. And they started organizing everything. Mom was cooking, grandpa was getting himself warm in the chimney, the girl was putting the dishes and everything, and everybody was getting ready to have a good time as a family. So the gnomes tried running away. So what happens was that they were about to eat when the McDonald's came back home, because the McDonald's were out of the house at that time. They came back, they see the gnomes sitting on the table as you see over here, and they were about to eat. They were about to start the haggis. But when the gnomes saw the McDonald's, they ran away because they thought that they were going to do something bad to them. So they tried to run away, but what happened was that the woman or the wife of the McDonald's house, she told them that if they didn't want to stay, to share the haggis. So therefore they sat together in the table, the McDonald's and the McDonald's, and they shared the dinner, the haggis together. They had a good time, and they started reading poetry that you will see in the story. That it's the Cozy Cozy Hoose, the story that they read. Well, not the story, but the poem that they read. And finally, they felt at home. Basically, it's a really, really beautiful story that, if you see, it's about family. It's about sharing. It's about being like a good person with other people who needs it. And basically that's the story, okay? So right now I will stop recording. That was the explanation of the topic. You can check it later on the YouTube channel.